All right, last of the afternoon games, the Denver Broncos at the Las Vegas Raiders. I was wrong on this game. Thought that 0-3 Raiders, struggling this year. Russ would have a good game against a very bad defense. He didn't have a horrible game, but he didn't have a good game. Javonte Williams is out for the year. Uh, that was devastating to hear. And it's crazy. He had two major tails, an ACL and an LCL, I believe. And he I saw him trying to like put force on it on the sidelines, and knowing that he probably has a super high pain tolerance. Hopefully this is something that can light a fire under Russ, but I discussed this topic with my brother earlier, and who was on one of my previous podcasts, and he uh he thinks that the Broncos and his team, the Dolphins, are dead. And you know, I don't want to believe that quite yet. It's our star running back, but I believe in his case it's the Dolphins. It's their star quarter. It was their quarterback, and he was the reason why they were winning. Javonte's a big part of why the Broncos were winning, but they also usually can establish a decent running game without a stud running back usually. Um, so I'm hurt because I love Javonte. He's my favorite running back. He bounces off of tacklers. He runs as hard as Derrick Henry. But now he's hurt and lost one of my favorite players. And hopefully Melvin Gordon can do something. But I honestly I don't want him on my team anymore. I really don't. He had two. I know one major turnover, and then he almost had two major turnovers yesterday. Um, he does that. He's had four fumbles this year. Do you think maybe that's a reason why we might be 3-2 or 2-2? Do you think that might be a reason why we've been close in games? It probably was the reason why the Texans game was closer than it should have been. I know our offense has looked lethargic, but I think Melvin Gordon has been a big reason why the Broncos have looked so crummy because you're trying to establish these dink and dunk passes. I see they're trying to get a roll going. But then you run the ball and you fumble the first play. It's a game killer. Fumbles are game killers, and they can suck the momentum out of your team. And I think they need to just go out on the market and get somebody because I know they're gonna run Melvin Gordon because they've shown more faith in him than I think anybody has. So who knows what they're gonna do? I think they shouldn't be running with him as much, but they're probably going to. As for the Raiders, Derek Carr finally has a bright spot to the season. Devontae Adams looked good against Cortland Sutton. Had made a few pass deflections on Devontae, but Devontae handled him most of the day and having like 10 receptions. So I mean, going over 100 yards. So good day for the Raiders. Their defense didn't do. I mean, the defense. I can't really say much about their defense. They didn't really stop the Broncos a whole lot. I shouldn't say that. Their run defense actually looked really good. They were stuffing Javonte the whole game. Maybe he was partially hurt before he was, through the game. Maybe he had a partially torn LCL and he was running on that, and maybe that's why his he couldn't get any yards. But for the most part, they were stuffing the run. They were stuffing Gordon too. So uh, I give props to the Raiders' run defense. I thought Javante would have a big game. I was totally wrong on that. I'll admit that. Um, but their pass defense, I mean, Russ seemed to get some plays on them, and so the highlight of the day is probably the Raiders offense. Um, Josh Jacobs actually looked pretty solid. I hope he comes back. I'm a fan of his. I hope he reinvigorates his career because it kind of looked like for a while he was going to lose his job with his yards per carry, but uh, overall he looked pretty well, pretty good, ran pretty well yesterday. And Devontae Adams looked real good. Derek Carr didn't look terrible. He did enough for them to win. I'd say it's more so on the playmakers they have as with Josh Jacobs and Devontae, but Darren Waller didn't have all that great of a game either. So um, I just think that hopefully this lights a fire under the Broncos and the Raiders finally have something good to think about their season. They beat their division rival. So good for the Raiders, but the Broncos Broncos need to put the game on Russ. Now is the time. We're not going to have much of a run game anymore. We're 2-2. We lost the division lead. It's time to let him pass 40 times a game. I don't care. I don't care if that's the proper way to win. That's what's going to win when you don't have a running back in a running game or other things working. Force the ball to these receivers. Jerry Judy's a top 10 pick. Cortland Sutton's an established number 1. KJ Hamler's pretty solid for a number 3. So move the ball downfield. That is the only way they're going to succeed now. If they keep playing the way they've been playing all season, which they probably will, they're barely going to be above 500.